Who's excited for YJA 18? There we go. If everyone could please take a seat and settle down, we're going to start in just a second. Darshan reiterated, but I'm just going to say that we have the Everwall going on, so if you want to get your social media on our Everwall, use the hashtag YJ18 or YJLove, or use the website. Okay, we'll get started shortly. Thanks, guys.
All right, hello everyone, Jai Jinendra. My name is Neelam Savla.
And my name is Bansari Shah, and we're a part of the 2018 Daytime Programming Committee. Thank you so much for joining us for the 2018 Young Janes of America Convention Keynote Address. Today we have the privilege and honor to introduce to you this year's keynote, Ms. Nikita T. Mitchell.
Nikita is the creator of Above the Bottom Line, a platform dedicated to keeping you informed of how the world's most influential companies are taking a stance on important issues. She received her MBA from UC Berkeley Haas School of Business and has been cited as Diversity MBA Magazine's Top 100 Under 50 Executive and Emerging Leaders. A fierce advocate for women's rights, Nikita serves on the board of directors for Planned Parenthood of Northern California. She is currently a senior manager at Cisco, where she is responsible for strategy and planning initiatives for the company's $20 billion America sales organization. In her free time, you can find Nikita catching up on her never-ending reading list, training for a half marathon, or planning her next vacation.
We are so excited to present to you this year's keynote, Nikita T. Mitchell.
It's never too late to pivot. Sometimes in our career we hit roadblocks, and what's important is that we find opportunities to move forward and always think about how we can get toward our goal. It's important to do things even when you're scared. Don't wait. I have had experiences in my career where I've been given opportunities before I thought that I was ready, but you're never quite ready. And when you have the right community and experience behind you, you can find a way. So do it scared, always do it before you're ready. We are here because of the communities that raised us, that supported us, that lifted us up so that we could sit in this room here together.
That was the coolest. I've never had an intro video, and I'm pretty much famous now. I'm pretty sure. I'm so excited to be here. I feel so honored to be here in this space, to be welcomed, to be a part of your community, to be a part of this experience. I think before I start, I want to get a few housekeeping things settled. We're going to have a pretty interactive session, which means you're going to meet and talk to some strangers. I know, I'm an introvert a little bit, so that scares you a little bit. For those of you who don't like talking to strangers, I promise we're going to do it with care. So, if you are sitting next to an empty seat, raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up. If you are sitting in the back row, your job is to get up and find that empty seat. I will come off the stage and guide you. Come on. Keep your hands raised. We have one up here. We have some over here. Back row on that side. I can see you. You're not invisible. I would love for you to come join us in the front. Come make some new friends. There's a gentleman over here who doesn't look like he bites. I don't know, this one may bite, but he looks like he's pretty cool. Yeah? All right, raise hands if you're sitting next to an empty seat. All right, we've got a few more. No empty seats. We leave no Jane behind. Raise your hand if you're sitting next to an empty seat. Okay, I think you'll be good. We'll have you all be friends today. Is it reserved here? Oh, it's blank chair, okay. Do we need one more? Anyone else lonely out here in the world? Don't be alone. Okay, raise your hand if you're sitting next to an empty seat. All right, you all on this side might be okay. All right, second order of housekeeping. If you can hear me, snap one time. If you can hear me, snap 2 times. All right, if you can hear me, snap 4 times. Was that 5? I don't know. All right, we're gonna do that a lot today. And when I do that, that's gonna be my attempt to bring our attention back together. We're gonna have some lively conversations at different points, but when you hear that, finish up your conversation and come back to the room. The other thing we're gonna do, have any of you been to spoken word? Yeah? Have any of you not been to spoken word? Me either, but I learned this on TV. So when people say something that you're really feeling, it resonates with you, what do you do? Oh, man, that just made my heart so happy. Okay, so we're gonna spend some time getting to know one another. And when you hear parts of people's experiences, if you hear parts of my experience that resonate with you, I want you to snap. And it's just your way of saying, I see you, I feel you. You're not alone, okay? All right, we're here today because of community. You all are part of a rich and vibrant and beautiful community. And I don't think I need to teach you anything about what community means. But what I do want to talk to you today about is about connection and how you can use community to foster deeper relationships, to cultivate your voice, and to change the world. My very first lesson in community and connection came at a really young age. When I was 4, I went inside and I put on my cap and gown. It was blue, and I put it on my head, and I put on the blue gown, and I went outside to join my sisters, who were also dressed in a cap and gown. I grew up in Maryland. Just imagine any stereotype of American suburbs. That was my life. That grass, my dad, he spent hours every Wednesday evening. You did not mess up with this man's schedule. Every Wednesday evening, he mowed his lawn like the proud man he was. Even the edges of the lawn, what do you call that thing that cleans the edges? Oh man, he was very focused. And on that lawn, we took pictures during important milestones in our lives. And I was so proud. I remember hearing my parents tell that story of me putting my cap and gown on, even though it wasn't my graduation day. You see, my sisters had graduated from Howard University, and they were taking pictures, and I'm the last of 5 daughters. And like the baby girl that I am, I wanted to be part of the attention. So I insisted that I put my cap and gown on too and take pictures with them. And even though it would take me many more years to understand the lesson from this photo, what I learned was their success was also mine. Their accomplishments were also mine. That success was actually a community act. Growing up, my house was always full of people. So I'm a child of immigrants. My parents are from the Caribbean. My father's from Trinidad and Tobago, and my mother's from Barbados. And all of my sisters were born in the Caribbean. I was the only one born here. And my sisters, one by one, came to this country to go to college. And so my house, even when it wasn't full of my sisters, was also full of other people who were coming to America to go to college. It was like the third dorm for Howard University. Cousins, second cousins, neighbors of cousins, friends of neighbors of cousins. My house was full. There was always food, there was always music, there was always another pillow and blanket for someone to sleep on, usually my bed, so I got the floor. But it was great. I had such a beautiful childhood. When I think about my house growing up, you walk up those wooden steps straight into the kitchen, and the most vivid memories I have is this kitchen full of women, Caribbean women cooking. Plates and big iron pots of food, taking it outside where everybody would be. So you walk through the kitchen, and you walk to the right and to the left, you go through that back door, and our back door was just always a party outside. There was always something to celebrate. And children's birthday parties were the biggest celebration, not for kids. Not for kids. You might hear children running around, but you definitely never saw them. What you saw was lots of adults hanging out, people bringing their folding chairs from around the corner at their house, my dad washing down the picnic bench that he took pride in taking care of so that one more person could get a seat and a plate of food. And over the sound of kids playing, you can hear soca music, calypso music, reggae music. This was home. Home was a place full of laughter and joy and lots of love. I joked, and I actually wrote in my college essays about this house that I grew up in, that it was always full of people, to the point that when I got to college and I would go out to parties, I could actually fall asleep in the middle of them. And people always thought it was the strangest thing. I'm like, didn't you fall asleep with lots of noise around you every night? I don't understand. My house was not a quiet place. That place, that community, that culture was who I was. My parents, they spent a lot of time, money, and energy investing in making sure that I understood my roots. From the time I was really young, I spent my summers in the Caribbean with my paternal grandparents. I joked that my parents couldn't wait for school to be done because I feel like as soon as the last day hit, they took me from school to the airport, handed me to the air hostess, and shipped me off to my grandmother. That's what it felt like sometimes. But I also have these amazing memories of my mother sewing lots of clothes, new clothes for the summer, so that I'd have a full suitcase of things to wear. They'd pack barrels. I don't know if you all are familiar with barrels for shipping things to other countries, but they would fill it with food that I would have for the summer and other items that they would send to cousins and aunts and siblings back home. And when I got to the airport, when our plane landed in Trinidad, I still remember, so I'd be the last person off the plane because I was traveling with the air hostess usually. And I'd be waiting for everyone else to get off one by one, sitting in first class, waiting at the front, you know. And back then, the airport, it didn't have a jetway bridge, so, you know, they skirt the little stairs up to the plane, and then you have to kind of like walk down onto the tarmac. I love how the older people are nodding their heads. Everyone else is like, what? Why would you walk off the plane? I'm not that old, guys. And I'd step off the plane and I could feel the sun hit my skin. And it was just amazing. And at the time, there was also a viewing gallery in the airport, so people could watch their loved ones get off the plane. So I would be stepping down onto the tarmac, and above the sound of the engine of the plane, I could hear my grandmother yelling, "Nikki! Nikki!" She was waiting for me. My grandmother always was waiting for me. And I knew as soon as I walked into that airport and got to customs that my grandfather would be waiting there, preferably with a beef patty, because that was my favorite. And we would get into his car that was old and rusty, and he'd drive it at least 20 kilometers slower than the speed limit. And we would drive, and if it was nighttime when I landed, I'd hear the sounds and the music of the crickets on the island. And I knew I was home. And it's funny because I spent so much of my life wanting to feel normal. Like, I wanted my mother to cook American food, you know? Like, I don't want to smell like curry every day, because we cook curry too. I always smelled like garlic. Now I can't live without garlic, so it's funny how everything comes back around, right? I wanted my mom to make spaghetti. I wanted to know what are Brussels sprouts? I'm like, what? What are these things that everyone hates? I want to hate them too. Everyone went to sleepaway camp. What's sleepaway camp? I couldn't even sleep over at other people's houses unless they were Caribbean. No, my mother did not play that, okay? And let's not talk about pop culture, because we did not have TV and we definitely did not have cable. So I had to go to other people's friends' houses for an hour and binge on MTV so I could try to learn the words to all the songs. When I was in 8th grade, my mother finally gave me a boombox. I know, boomboxes. And she let me listen to it for an hour a week. Because my only job was school, and that had nothing to do with school. So, one summer in Trinidad, I had the opportunity to learn the steel drums. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with it, but it's an instrument created in Trinidad and Tobago, and it sounds like ping, ping, pong, ping, pong. And I was so excited. I should have brought a picture of that. Oh, I was so proud. It was so cool. That was the beginning of the end, because now I had to perform this steel drum everywhere we went. My parents were so proud, so proud. And we had something called the Trinidad and Tobago Association in DC. So the Washington, DC community has a very rich and vibrant Caribbean culture. And so I was raised in that bubble of culture that was so beautiful and also so suffocating at times. And every Christmas show, I had to perform. And believe it or not, I was a very shy kid. So my mother would dress me up in this red velvet dress that she'd bought just for the occasion. She would put on my gold earrings that were the symbol of Trinidad and Tobago that we only brought out for special occasions, my little necklace that had the map of Trinidad on it, and she would push me out into the crowd, and I had to go make her proud and perform a song. They also made us do other embarrassing things. There was this group of kids I grew up with, and they basically put all of us together and declared us a choir, and we had to sing parang every Christmas, which is a type of Christmas music from the Caribbean. And we would have to get up there and sing all these songs that are quite hilarious. They were I don't even want to tell you the words. They're so funny. Now that I'm older, I'm like, what? This doesn't even make any sense. They were so funny, but it was mortifying. When I look back, those were some of the best experiences of my life, because they grounded me in who I am, they rooted me in my culture, and they taught me that no matter where I was, I had no reason to question where I came from. Fast forward to high school. I went to private school my whole life, and I was raised Catholic. And we all had the great decision to send me to a very wealthy, all-girls Catholic school in Georgetown, DC. How many of you have been to Georgetown? Okay. So you know it's where the money is. There's a lot of money in that city. And it was the first time I had interacted with white people, other than my one white neighbor. She used to help me with language arts. Now just imagine this girl who couldn't even get her mother to make spaghetti enough, who grew up around mostly Caribbean people, but if they weren't Caribbean, they were African American, born and raised generations, and already feeling like, I'm not going to talk about that with these friends, right? My first day of school at Georgetown Visitation, you drive up these cobblestone roads in Georgetown, and they have these red brick sidewalks that are so uneven because the city is so old that the trees, the roots grow under them, and they just like have little waves, right, through them. And the street that you drive to my school, it dead ends at the gates of my school. My school is closed by gates. I should have taken that as a sign. The gates are open, my dad drives in, drops me off, so proud. I'm in my uniform. It's a green pleated skirt that my mother ironed to perfection and a yellow polo, and I'm like looking the part. And I step out to a sea of girls who look nothing like me. In a space that looks nothing like anything I'd ever experienced before. You go from this street of cobblestone road and brick townhouses that are narrow but very long, and you walk into this fantasy land with luscious gardens and grass and buildings dedicated to prayer and education and raising girls with truth and service. And I remember feeling like an outsider, looking for at least some people I could identify with. And I immediately, of course, looked for other brown girls, the black girls in the class who looked like me, and sat next to them. But the problem was, even when I made those friends in the classroom, I was often the only one in honors classes or on the swim team. Who told me to join the swim team? Like, the swim cap can't even fit over my hair, okay? Like, my hair was twice this size. So I'd be the last person in the pool and the last person out the shower at the end of the swim practice. But I knew who I was. I never doubted that I was meant to be there. And so one of the things that we did is we decided to start a club focused on diversity. Now, what do I know about diversity? I just met white people. But a few of us had the opportunity to go to a conference called the People of Color Conference. It was for independent school students. And at that conference, I learned about all kinds of things. Like, I'd never heard about systemic racism. I never learned about ableism. I never learned about homophobia, any of those things. And at this conference, my mind was opened. And so we hit that campus when we got back with a vengeance, determined to educate and enlighten our peers on the world around us to make it a better place. And one of my favorite memories is deciding for the institution that the day that everyone goes to their respective clubs, we would instead take their time and we would educate them on things. So we had workshops on affirmative action and other topics, which meant we Googled what affirmative action was and then taught it to our peers. What I took from that experience and what was so beautiful about it was the People of Color Conference was this defining experience for me, where I learned how important my voice was in my community. In a community where people didn't look like me, but we shared similar values. And how I could take what I knew to be true from my own culture, from my own experience, and I could use my voice to improve the community that I had chosen to enter. So, with that, we're going to do an activity. Because who wants to listen to someone talk for a whole hour? And I want to learn more about all of you. So before you do anything, I want you to think about a defining moment in your life. What is a defining moment in the development of your faith? When did you first understand what your faith, what your culture meant to you. And if you can't think of that, think about an experience when you didn't even know, maybe, but your faith affected the way you interacted with someone or engaged in a new space. We're thinking about a defining moment in the development of your faith, in your identity, something that stands out for you. Raise your hand when you think of that. I'm not going to call on you, just so I have a sense of who's done. Defining moment in your faith. Everyone's all scared. I'm not calling on you. It's okay. All right. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Can we get lights on in the... Oh, yeah, it's happening. Okay. So we're going to talk to people. But we're going to talk to people you may not know. So if you are in the front row, raise your hand. Okay, so you're going to be ones, all right? I'm going to give you some direction. So you're ones, twos, and this extends all the way down, okay? So ones, raise your hand, you're one again. Keep your hands up, also ones. All right, all the way down, let me see some hands. Let me get a wave. Nope, you're two. Yeah, there we go. All right, you're ones. Raise your hands in this row. Oh, sorry, they're twos, I can't count. You're twos, Ones, twos, ones, twos. Are you following me? Ones, twos, ones, twos, one. Are you following? So every other row is a one or a two. If you're one and you're able to, you're going to face the twos. You're going to turn around in your chair. You're going to introduce yourself to the person who is behind you. Talk to a stranger. All right. If you can hear me, snap one time. If you can hear me, snap 2 times. If you can hear me, snap 3 times. If you can hear me, clap 4 times. Y'all are good. Okay, so I'm gonna do that one more time. I'm gonna give you 90 seconds to share with your partner. Who does not have a partner? No Janes behind. All right, there's a gentleman in the corner here who does not have a partner. Does anyone else not have a partner? Oh, look at that. So please go join the gentleman back there who raised his hand. Can you raise your hand again, sir? Please join him. Go ahead. We'll wait. All right. This is all about connection. We're here to build connection and enrich this beautiful community of yours. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds, and then we're going to swap. So partner number 1, you are going to share your defining moment with partner number 2. You ready? Go. If you can hear me, clap 1 time. If you can hear me, clap 2 times. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. If you can hear me, clap 4 times. I once had to do that to 8 claps in a much smaller group than this. That was awesome. Did anyone not have a chance to share with their partners? Did anyone wish they had more time to share with their partners? Yeah? Yeah? How many of you spoke to somebody you'd never spoken to before? Oh, I'm winning. Yes. Hands down, the best connector you ever had here. All right. Who would like to tell us their story, their experience? Right here?
Oh, this is cool.
And go ahead and
Okay.
stand up and tell us your name.
My name is Sahil Doshi. That's another Sahil Doshi. It's kind of cool. But for me, I think one thing I realized is I wanted to pursue bodybuilding, but also show that as something you can do as a vegetarian, because stereotypically being a vegetarian means like not enough protein, etc., and you're gonna be like skinny and all that. And then I wanted to change that by creating a reputation that would like help inspire my friends at first, and then more and more people. So I created a page, and I wanted to help people in realizing that you can be vegetarian, you can be strong, and you can be like an aesthetic person.
I love it. Tell us your name and, oh, hold on. All right. Is it working?
Hi, my name is Ishani. I'm from Fairfield, Connecticut, and a lot of people here have been telling me that they are in super Indian communities, but for me, I'm like one of 5 Indian people in my grade. So we have this thing in our school called International Day, and I decided to do a presentation junior year where I made a presentation on Indian weddings because they're awesome.
Yeah, they are.
And it was really cool because it wasn't something that I was embarrassed about by like being a minority, and I got to share some of my culture, and my mom and we actually performed a dance that we had done at like a family wedding. And it was nice because I had gotten a lot of like positive feedback from my friends because they thought it was really cool and interesting, not something strange and different. So.
Got somebody over here. Tell us your name.
Hi guys, my name's Shranik. I'm from California.
California rolled deep. Jeez.
West Coast, West Coast. So I'm part of a pretty large area. LA, as you guys know, is like probably, if you don't know, our bachelor classes are usually like 600
Talk a little
kids.
bit closer to the mic.
Like our bachelor classes are like 600 kids, usually every other Sunday. So we come from a pretty large area, so you learn a lot, you see a lot, and growing up with a big community, you definitely get to learn a lot about our religion and culture and society. What really turned it for me was when I went to India after maybe a few years, maybe in like 2007, 2008.
Sorry, guys. That felt really powerful.
I really got to see the difference of what I grew up with and what I knew what Jainism was, and then what my cousins knew what it was in India, because it's very different. For us, it was more of, and actually, it's convenient because the person I'm talking to, Moksh, is my partner. He grew up in India and then moved here. So I got to hear the flip side of it, how here it's more theoretical. We learn why we do it, what we do, how you do it. There it's all practical. You're like a machine. You just go, go, go. And they knew more of the practical stuff of what to say, when to say it, but they didn't know why they did it. And then when I came in and I told them, like, oh, this is why you do it. This is why we like do it in US. Like, it was weird for me trying to teach them. And that's the moment I was like, okay, maybe what we're doing here is progressive and it is a better way of learning. And he confirmed it too, that when he came here, he learned why he did the things instead of just doing them. So
I love that because it speaks to the interconnectedness.
yeah, it was cool.
Are you volunteering someone? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Hi guys. Oh wow. I'm Vishwa. I'm from Florida. Yeah, and Southeast Pride in general. But anyways, so defining moment for me that relates to Jainism and I guess my life in general So I don't know if you know, but we have like our 3 core principles that we're taught are like the 3 A's. So there's ahimsa, which is most popularly known, nonviolence. And there's aparikar, which is non-possessiveness. And then the third one, anikantvad, which means non-absolutism. So I was taught these 3 as a very young kid. And nonviolence, really easy to understand. Like, I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat meat. Non-possessiveness, like not being too attached to people, toys, really fairly easy to teach to a kid. Non-absolutism, that one's a lot harder. And so as a curious child, I asked, like, what does non-absolutism mean? And the people who were teaching me English wasn't their first language, so the best that they could do was tolerance. And now looking back at it, like, that's not the best definition for anikantvad, because tolerance implies that you're dealing with something that you don't necessarily want to be there. But I like took that as an answer and I moved on. 7th grade rolled around, I was in a government class. So we learned about absolutist governments. And that's when I like actually realized what the word absolutism means, to an extent. That was just the beginning. But an absolutism government is a government with one ruler, a dictatorship, for example. And so that means there's one truth. So that's when I understood the word absolutism. And so non-absolutism means that there's not one truth. So there's a progression, there's a process, a lot of conversations with my dad, my friends, my teachers. And eventually, in 11th grade, I took a class called Theory of Knowledge. So anyone else that did IB, you probably took that class. You did. I had an amazing teacher. I loved that class, and I learned about so many philosophies. But we got around to absolutism and relativism. And that gave me like a really strong understanding of what it means to not have just one truth, to have conflicting perspectives that can both be right in their own frames of reference. And that shaped how I think, how I talk, and my appreciation for Jainism at large. So that's something I think about a lot.
What I loved about that is it was a journey for you. It was a very long journey, and it still continues, I'm sure. And then after this, I want to hear from an adult. I'm looking at this group right here.
Hi, I'm Pareen, from Chicago, so Midwest. So, like in Bachelor and things, you learn a lot about Jainism. Like the big thing is like karma. You know, you get told like, don't do this, don't do that. You're gonna get bad karma. Bapche, bapche. But like, you know, it's really like theoretical and sometimes hard to understand. So freshman year, I joined badminton. And the thing about badminton at my high school is that we don't get referees. So when the birdie lands on the line or slightly out of the line, or in the line, you kind of have to make your own call. And so I don't know if, like, I know like our religion doesn't say that's how karma works, but I feel like every time I was unsure about the birdie and I wasn't like, you know, but I wanted the point and I kind of like gave myself the point, I always felt like I lost the next point. And then if I ever was like, okay, you know what? I'm pretty sure that was out, I should call it, like, or like it was in, I should call it in and give them the point. Like I always felt like I got the next point, which is like a very, very like brief description of how karma works, but it felt like it kind of like made me realize how it works and like it amplified my faith in that whole theory. So yeah, that's like my defining moment.
Thank you. One of the adult volunteers in a blue shirt. Would any adult volunteers like to share? Oh, I think we've got one in the back. Go ahead. Go for it. Oh, I didn't see you. Okay, we'll start here and then we'll go there.
I'm not an adult volunteer.
Thank you.
My name is Parshva from Toronto, Canada.
We've got Canadians in the house?
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
I also work at Cisco, so shout out.
So you're double cool.
I'd like to share a defining moment that I have. I have a defining moment every time I leave home.
Talk closer to the mic.
I have a defining moment every time I leave home. Whenever I leave home, I find that I have to use my better judgment and the principles that I've been taught based on Jainism and my culture to make decisions. So every time I leave home, it's a defining moment for me. I have to live my life based on what I've been taught. I don't have a parent to shield me or a sibling to shield me.
I don't think we can hear you very well.
You can?
Can others hear him?
Okay. I have a defining moment every time I leave home.
Okay.
I have to make decisions based on the principles of Jainism as my culture as well.
Okay.
I don't have a parent to shield me. I find that when I was living at home, I was shielded. My parents would teach me things. My parents would be there to give me support, to tell me what to eat and whatever to do. So whenever I leave home, I have to make the decisions myself, and that's a defining moment for me.
So it's a level of consciousness that you're required to have when you leave. All right, our last one.
So we were just talking about this before. For me, my first real defining moment was in 6th grade. So until then, I had gone to public school in New York. And the only questions I really got that pertained to my religion, my culture, were all about why I only ate lettuce and how I survived on that, and how I could have milk but not beef. You know, these really great questions that we've definitely all gotten. In 6th grade, I switched schools and I started at a Catholic school. And so for me, this was the first time where there were a lot of changes, but I think the biggest change for me was, for the first time in my life, religion really was a very constant topic of discussion. It wasn't enforced or pushed upon us in any way, but it was something that was very pervasive in our day-to-day at school, which was very different than public school, of course. So for me, in the first week to 10 days of 6th grade, which in hindsight was a relatively young age, I had to figure out how to not only define what Jainism meant to me, but explain it to people in the context of what I was understanding about their religion. So there was definitely this very forced exercise in Anekantvad, also just trying to relate to people, trying to explain that it's not that we don't believe in Jesus per se, but these are the things we believe in. And being forced to just articulate those was something that I think, for me, in hindsight, was very much a defining moment. Until then, I hadn't really thought about what religion meant to me. Like, I knew what it was, but it wasn't something I'd ever really articulated. But thinking back, I think that's really when I myself understood what Jainism truly meant to me, and it was the first time I internalized it in a way that was really meaningful. So for me, that was
I love that.
Life-changing moment.
Absolute last one, and I think I'm gonna try to get us back on track. All right. I didn't expect all this sharing. This is great.
I'm Dr. Shailesh Mehta, visiting from India. And by profession, I'm eye surgeon. I have a privilege to work with the outer eye, inner eye, small eye, and big eye. That's the humorous part. My defining change came when I was a medicos at the age of 18, way back in 1977, when I had many queries since childhood, and they were not being answered by any scriptures, any teachers, preachers, monks, or nuns. But when I got my inner vision opened out, from that, it's almost 40 years. And I have realized that this is a very scientific, as somebody was asking why, when, what, and how, you must be able to understand for yourself and share with others.
Yeah.
It's very simple, practical, effective, and useful, and it must give results. If it doesn't give result, the knowledge is not there. So if I share only one thing, that the Mahavir gave the sutra, Yoga Upyogo Paropakaro, means use your mind, speech, body, intellect, and time for others. But my intellect was not accepting. I'm too busy with my stuff. How can I spare the time for others? When I realize I'm not obliging others, I'm obliging myself first. Because as soon as I decide to help, my inner energy becomes positive, fulfillment comes to me, my SPECT scan are positive, aura body is positive, functional MRI is positive. So when it became simple, the world became me only. So that's how I'm here to be friends with all of you, and I feel one with you. I am in you, you are in me. Thank you very much.
That was a powerful segue. Can we come back to you at the end, if that's okay? Thank you. I don't want to keep you off from lunch, because then you'll just be hangry. So, thank you for sharing that. I think Everything that you all shared is so powerful, because what it says to me is that, what I've learned about Jainism, it's not just a religion, it's a way of life, right? And everything that you all have shared is a perfect example of that. It's about the interconnectedness and how we learn about our way of life. It's about teaching other people in our community about who we are and developing empathy so that we can relate to them and they can relate to us. It's about that interconnectedness around reaching beyond just yourself to impact others, the community, the world at large. I don't know about you, but I get really depressed reading the news. I have a hard time some days. The gun violence, the sexism, the Me Too movement, police brutality, xenophobia, it's all really hard. I think what's so beautiful about each of you in this community is that you were taught one of the most beautiful things that I think anyone can be taught, which is compassion. Your faith is rooted in compassion. And I don't know if there is a better time in the world than now for a group of people as powerful, as beautiful, as joyful as you to shine that light. I mean, only some of you feel me? I don't think that there is a better time for all of you to shine your light. I was going to walk you through some more of my professional experience, but I'll just end with this before I kind of give you my takeaways. I spent a lot of the early part of my career trying to figure out the perfect way to change the world. I thought that I had to have a certain type of job, work for a certain type of organization, and do a certain type of thing. Long story short, I was proven very wrong. I had to quit a job and kind of go back to square one. And that was how I ended up at Berkeley. And when I got to Berkeley, I used that as an opportunity to learn more about how business impacts the world. I wanted to understand this thing that I loved and how we could do it better to leave the world a better place than when we started. And so I worked on my leadership skills because I also learned that who you are and how you treat people is the most important impact you can have every day. As a manager, as a leader of an organization, there's no better way to change the world than to just be a good human. I went into technology because I wanted to understand how to be a savvy businesswoman. And I figured one day it'll all come together. One day, I don't know what this future of mine holds, but I'm gonna go for this journey. I'm gonna keep working on myself, be committed to self-discovery, becoming a better person, and I'll figure it out. And then Trump's immigration ban happened, February 2017, and I was devastated. I read this article in the New York Times about how CEOs and companies were speaking up. They were defending their immigrant employees. They were stating that they were going to put their resources behind any defense that any of their employees needed to be able to get into this country or to move about freely. And I was just like, wow, that is leadership. That is the kind of leader I want to see in the world. And I started to feel like, how do we keep track of that? How do I learn more about CEOs and companies that understand the importance and the critical time that we're in, the critical time for their voice and their resources? And I couldn't sleep one night, and I just kept thinking about it. And then I realized, if Berkeley taught me anything, it taught me that if it doesn't exist and the world needs it, you gotta go create it. And that's how I ended up creating Above the Bottom Line. Above the Bottom Line is a newsletter that I send out. In its current form, it's a newsletter, and I cover everything from the Me Too movement to pay inequality, to, to environmental issues. And through that process, I am committed to educating others and raising awareness for the things that I want to see more of in the world. And my question for you is, what does your journey look like? How do you go from discovering your voice at something like a People of Color conference to teaching your peers about discrimination and how to make your community a better place for everybody, to using your voice, to speaking your truth, for using everything that you learned in spaces like this to have some kind of impact. And for some of you, that looks like going to protests, showing up at the airport and saying no ban. For some of you, that might look like boycotts. I don't know how many of you followed the Parkland students movement after the shooting in Florida, but they are phenomenal. They started the March for Life. Is it March for Life? March for Our Lives, right? Thank you. And most importantly, what I was impressed with was how they used Twitter as a platform to get companies to change the way they did business. They stopped companies from working with the NRA. That was pretty powerful. But you don't have to start a whole rally for millions of people either. You can start at home. You can also go inward. You can look at who you are and how you show up in the world, if you're being your best, truest self. I remember one of my frustrations in Catholic school. It sounds like a lot of you would have had this experience where I'm a very curious person, and Catholic school is very dogma-based. Everything is right, wrong, rigid, we don't explain why, and that was really difficult for me. And I remember having to go to church all the time and being around all these religious people, but my father wasn't a very religious man. And I always found it interesting how some of the most Christ-like people in my life were not the people who were religious. They were the people who just treated people with dignity. They treated people with respect, with love, and they just knew that if I had one small impact on someone's life, I could leave this world a better place. So what does that look like for you? I want you to spend this time thinking about this. And as you think about community, and you think about this community, the richness of what you have in this room, I want you to do 3 things. 1, invest in what you have here. You've already taken the time to be here, which is phenomenal. I don't know how many of you were coerced to be here by parents, highly influenced to be here by parents, but you're here. And I tell you, regardless of why you might be here, I don't think you will ever regret it, because this is one of the most phenomenal times you will have in your life, to be with people who see you, who understand you, who love you, who love you. I want you to not take that for granted. You've already met one new person today, hopefully, because I'm a master connector, you know, but also try to get to know someone else again. Or maybe try to get to know someone you already know just a little bit better. Maybe ask them about their defining moment if you don't know. See if you can connect on a deeper level. The second thing about community is to take it wherever you go. One of my learnings from all of the experiences that I look back on from my childhood was that sometimes I carried my Caribbean culture when I didn't even realize I was. And I have friends who were American-born, American-raised. One friend didn't even have a passport before she came to Trinidad with me, and now they know more about my culture sometimes than I do. And it's remarkable how invested they have become in being a part of a community that they too found beautiful just by the way that my family demonstrated our love and care for one another. So don't leave your relationships here. Take them with you. Support each other virtually. Take the way you interact with each other to whatever place you're going. and also show others what that looks like. The third thing is to make community wherever you go. That's sometimes hard. A few years ago, I moved to Berkeley to go to grad school, and man, I know you all have roti wrapped in curry chicken. Oh God, I missed it so much. I could not find Caribbean food anywhere, and I would have paid anybody to mail me a roti. But the thing was, someone didn't have to eat the same food as I ate or listen to the same music as I listened to be someone I could form community with. I just had to find people who shared similar values, people who valued the people in their lives the way that I did, who wanted to see everyone around them thrive the way that I did. Now I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's where I recently moved. Oh, hey. All right. So it's interesting. It's the first time in my life I've moved somewhere where I literally know nobody other than my partner's family. And forming community from scratch is really hard. It is really hard. And I don't have an answer for how you do it from scratch, but I know a lot of you are doing it through your school communities, through your family, friends. I remember growing up, everywhere I went, my mother would say, "Oh, you have an aunt there." And I'm like, how? Of course, these are not blood related. Everybody's an aunt. One time I was studying abroad. One time I was studying abroad in France, and my mom said, "You have an aunt in France." I'm like, what? How did she get there? And she was in like rural France, and we went to visit her, and she made the most delicious French food. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna start listening to my mother more, because everywhere I go, there is always somebody who is there to welcome me with open arms and probably a plate of food. Don't take that for granted. Start small, wherever you can, and build community just based on who you are. When I was on my flight here, I watched A Wrinkle in Time. Have any of you seen it or read the book? So I was on the tarmac for like 2 hours. I had hella time, so I watched it. And basically, for those of you who don't know, this young girl is looking for her father, who's been missing for 4 years because he discovered a new way to enter like the universe. And she's super smart and goes into this other universe to find her father. And these 3 supernatural beings, one of them being Oprah, who is my mother in my head, they help her discover where her father might be. And they discover that he's on this planet that is made of evil. And within this planet, there's this thing called it. And it is basically jealousy, rage, anger. It's all of the evil in this world. And Meg's able to find her father. And at the end of the movie, Oprah looks at Meg and she says, "Because of you, the universe is bright. Because of you and your light, there is less it in the world." So I leave you with this. Go be a light. Go help us make less it in the world. Do we have any time for a Q&A? It's up to you. Okay, so if you all have questions afterwards, I will be here, and I will be also at the networking happy hour this evening, so if you want to chat with me, we can chat then. If you can hear me, snap 1 time. If you can hear me, snap 2 times. 3 times for fun. Thank you.
She's a lot better than I am at this.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. Can we give her one more round of applause for that amazing keynote?
On behalf of the entire Young Janes of America organization, we just wanted to provide you with a small token of our appreciation. Thank you so much, Nikita.
Can I get a hug?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.